And we are live. We are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Wednesday Wisdom Series, live every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So, anyone who's out there, come and join us, join the conversation, ask questions, comment. We will answer them whether it is within the broadcast or after. And welcome, Jennifer, to our series. I did create this series. I wanted to host a platform to showcase each of our women in our group, have you share your story, your wisdom, how you've navigated your life, the work that you do in the world and more. And it's been so much fun so far. Like all of you are so interesting. It's so interesting. And it's complex, especially as women, as there's so many layers. And I just love that we're going to get a chance to get to know one another within the group. People were asking me, how can I kind of get to know the people? We have these events, we break out, we meet one person, but this is an opportunity now to really get to know, the person who I'm spotlighting today. And then I'm going to share the video with you, Jennifer, and you can do with it what you wish, post it, show it to your family,
Okay.
Don't or not, whatever your choice. And again, it's about shifting the perception of women as we age, and in addition to hopefully to working towards shifting our cultural beliefs around aging. And I know and I feel deeply that our world needs more than ever the full expression of women's voices, women's radiance, women's creativity, and women's intelligence. So with that, this week's Wednesday Wisdom is with the fabulous and fantastic Jennifer Disnong. Thank you so much for being here. I met Jennifer at a Jack Canfield event in 2016, and we became accountability partners for a while. And she's amazing, amazing human. She is a jack of all trades. I can tell you that. There'll be times I would call. She's like, "Well, I'm designing a room now. I'm building this. I'm doing this." I'm like, you are like a superwoman in my eyes. But I'll tell you just a little intro about Jennifer. So Jennifer, in her 20s, going back to then, she was a stockbroker in her 20s, she was a stockbroker. For the next 13 years, she was a professional speaker and trainer in finance. And at age 40, she started writing kids' books, children's books, and doing motivational speaking and coaching on empowerment. In 2013, Jennifer became a Reiki master 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, she finally accepted that she is a medium, and she's been doing that work and Reiki ever since. She's also, in addition, published a fantasy novel in 2017. So she's also an author of kids' books and a novel. And Jennifer, what I would love to do, well, first let me share with you guys, and we're going to do a deep dive into the mediumship, because I think that people are always very curious about that, and I know people have asked me about that, and potentially women in our group are going to be interested to know more about that, and and we'll get to how to contact you at the end. But if you could just talk a little bit about your history, your background. I'm going to give you like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever, to talk about your story, and whatever it is that you want to share. So the stage is yours, my friend.
Okay. And you want to talk about the medium stuff, right?
Well,
so you know what was interesting about that?
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So, my whole life, I was always, businesswoman, professional woman, on that direction. And I loved it and had nice success with it. But I always knew I had really good gut feelings, right? I'd call them strong intuition or good gut feels. And in fact, even when I was like buying real estate, I wouldn't buy it unless I could walk through it, because I needed to know how it felt. And anybody that knew me always knew I had that. And I just didn't know what it was called or what the word was for it. And even sometimes I would know if a business deal was falling apart, just in my gut. And I'd be like, I've got to call that guy. I think something's happening. And sure as anything, I'd call and he would say, oh, I was just thinking about backing out. And so I just always attributed to having really good intuition, which made me happy. But also sometimes, and then as I started getting older, like when I was younger, it was easier to like block it out or ignore it, because sometimes I would just know stuff about people, but I didn't really know how I knew it. And I never paid attention to it, you know. And I mean, there were times like when like I just knew like don't do business with that person, and I would, but my head would overtalk my intuition to be like, well, if it works out, it's going to be such a good deal. And then when it didn't work out, I was like, man, I knew it. Why did I not listen to my gut? Right. And I think as women, we're really taught to not trust our gut. And then, and I've always had, even growing up, like I would occasionally have dreams of like somebody who had passed over, like a loved one or a family member, and they were beautiful. I'd be standing in a field talking to them, and they looked amazing, and it would just be a really beautiful conversation. And when I would wake up from those, I would always feel happy about it. And then as I just thought it was something natural and normal, and I didn't really think much about it. And then as I got older, about 4 years ago, we had moved into a really cool historic property. And after we were here for, a couple months, it just seemed like I was just getting a lot more information. And so I don't know if it was because of the move or if it was because of aging or if maybe I just opened up to it. But I remember I was running a overcoming anxiety workshop.
Probably all of them, Jen, right? Probably all of the above.
Yeah, I think so. Like when you get older, you get more comfortable in your own skin, and you don't feel like you have to hide certain attributes of yourself. And so about 4 years ago, I was doing, maybe 3, I was doing an overcoming anxiety workshop at my house on a Saturday morning, and I had like 10 or 12 people there. And at the end of it, everybody left except this one woman, and she has a really high stress career. Just in emergency services, and I didn't really know her, but she was talking to me and telling me how stressful it was. And out of the blue, I say to her, "You have to stop taking Ambien, or it's going to ruin your life." And she burst into tears and said, "How do you know that? Like nobody knows that I take it. It's the only way I can sleep." And I said, "I don't know how I know. Like sometimes I just know stuff, but normally I don't say anything about it, right? I would just always keep it to myself." And that was really the catalyst. It was the big push for me to be like, it's time to figure out what this is. Because I didn't even know what the word was for it. And so, you know who Teresa Caputo is, the Long Island medium?
Yes.
Okay. So I was like, I think it's something like that, but I don't really know what it is. And I figured I couldn't get a hold of her, right? Because she's so famous. But I had heard her say one time that she'd had a mentor that trained her to help her understand what hers was, because she didn't understand it until she was an adult also. And so I got a hold of her, that woman, and we did a phone interview, like a conversation, and she said, "So you have it. Why are you not using it?" And I said, honestly, it kind of scares me. Like, what if something dark shows up, right? And because when I was learning Reiki back in 2013, every time I worked on somebody, I would know all kinds of private information about them, and it would make me actually feel sick to my stomach. And that's why I never practiced Reiki before on other people. I would only do it to myself to get myself centered and grounded. But she said, and so she said, "Why aren't you doing it?" And I said, it's scary. Like, what if shadow shows up? That's what I call it, shadow. And she said, what's really cool that most people don't realize is just like you get to pick your circle of friends, you get to choose what kind of spirit shows up around you. So by saying, I only allow the highest vibrating spirit around me, near me, or through me, that's it. That's all that can show up. And it was seriously like a weight off my shoulders, like somewhere in my subconscious, I must have recognized that as truth, because all of a sudden I wasn't afraid of it anymore. And so she said, it's like a muscle, and the more you do it, the stronger it gets. So I want you to, take these couple online classes and read this book. And so I did that. And then I didn't think much about it for about the next 6 months. And then I went down to Mexico, and I was down there for a month, dog sitting for a friend of mine. And the second day I was there, I ran into these 2 guys in the street who we just know them from the neighborhood. And they were like, "Hey, have you heard of this new guy that's a medium that just moved to Mexico from LA?" And I said, "No." And they said, "You should go see him." Now, keep in mind, they didn't have any idea that I had been studying or kind of developing this in myself. And I had never even been to a medium before. So I set up an appointment with him, and I went to him a couple days later, and he was like, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I think I have something like you, but I don't really know what it is or how it works." He didn't say anything, and we did the reading. And afterwards he said, "Okay, so you know what? Like half the people that come in here tell me that same thing that you said, that, oh, I think I have it." And he said, "I'm thinking like BS, that's, you don't have it." But he said, "But now that I've done the reading, you do have it." So I feel like we should be working together, so I can help you understand how to develop it. Because the weird thing is, it would just come and go. Like I didn't have any control over it, right? It would show up or it would not show up, but I didn't feel like I could call it in because I just didn't know how to do it. And so he really helped. That month we got together 3 times a week for 2 hours at a time. And he really helped me understand what I was seeing, because it's like playing charades with spirit, right? Like they're showing you stuff, they're giving you information, but they can only give you that information based on my own experiences and my own vocabulary, right? So sometimes I would see, like when I first started doing this, out of my first 6 clients, on 2 different ones, I'd see a pair of work boots in my mind thrown in the corner. And I'm like, were they a farmer? And on one of them, he was a farmer, and the other guy was not a farmer. And I was like, so what does that mean? And then I realized that's the symbol that spirit gives me when the spirit was a really hard worker or had really good work ethic in real life. The spirit will show me that, because my family are a bunch of farmers, right? And so in my mind, farmers are hard workers. And so that's why they would use that symbol if they were showing me that person had good work ethic.
Very well. That's fascinating.
So anyway, and then if I could just say just one more thing. So my mentor in Mexico said, go home and I want you to read for 4 strangers that you don't know, to practice. And I thought, how am I going to do that? People are going to think I'm insane, right? They're going to think I've completely fallen off my rocker because, it's business Jen, and then it was author Jen, and now all of a sudden Jen's a medium. Like what? And so I didn't do anything for about the first month or 2, and then out of the blue, I was thinking to myself, how am I going to find 4 strangers? And the very next day, the woman that does my facials sent me a is that you?
I said, and me.
And you. Well, and that's right. I called you and said, practice on you. Do you remember?
Yes, absolutely. I was like, sure, bring it on. It was fascinating. Fascinating.
Thanks.
And very,
anyway,
very,
that was 3 years ago.
Yeah. That was 3 years ago.
Thank you for almost 3 years ago now. So I've been doing it that long. So, and it's just by word of mouth and referral is how I do my business. But yeah, thank you for trusting me with your loved ones when we did that reading, because it was a really beautiful and powerful reading.
It was very powerful. My grandmother was there, and we healed some stuff. And my father, you saw him in his little exercise. I mean, it was just, I wrote it down. I have it written down. I have my notes on it. I'm sure in one of my many, many notebooks, but it was pretty amazing. But so my question is, I really believe that we all have this inner wisdom, and we all have intuition and again, we're not taught to really listen to it, but if it's always available to us, if we really can tune into it and access it. And I do believe that there is that we all have some type of access. Yours is developed, and yours was something that you had even in childhood, and I think I've heard from people that speak like you're speaking that as kids, they're like embarrassed, and they're just kind of like, and they don't maybe have somebody who's in their family who's kind of guiding them to, so they do kind of just don't really want that part of them, because all the kids want to belong, that sense of belonging that a lot of times as we get older, it gets old. It's like, you want to just be your best self. But I'm curious what you think about that, like that we all do have this to a degree. And I mean, it sounds like you really work to develop it. And I understand the fact that with the boots, like it has to come into the language or the images that your mind can then send, come through you, and then you can explain it. I guess I get that.
So I agree that on some level we all have that ability. You always see those like interviews where a woman, somebody's on the elevator that she has a bad vibe about, and she doesn't want to get on, but then she doesn't want to be impolite, so she goes ahead and gets on, and then it ends up being a bad situation. And that is the perfect example of when you know something in your gut, it's true. Like, and you have to pay attention. Is it coming from my head? Like, is it coming from worry? Or is it coming from like an inner knowing? And when you have that inner knowing, that gut feel, which we all have that, we just have a tendency to ignore it, or it's not the answer that we want. So we talk ourselves into a different direction through our mind.
Yeah.
But I do agree that probably most kids are really open to it because first of all, they're so open emotionally, right? They're just little imprints. But I also think it's because it wasn't very long ago that they were on the other side. So I think they have kind of a proclivity or an openness to higher vibration than what we have when we start getting older. It's funny, when I was telling somebody, I think part of my problem of why I didn't really understand it earlier was because I always had too much noise in my own head, right? I was always thinking about business or chasing the deal or working on putting the deal together, and I wasn't paying attention. Like, I just was never quiet in my mind. And I think if I would have been quiet earlier, I would have understood or recognized what it was a lot earlier.
Oh, I love that. That's so, so true, because believe me, my mind I had a major monkey mind. It wasn't so much about business. It was about torturing myself. And when I learned to, again, when it does happen in the quiet and stillness is where your wisdom and inner wisdom can really be revealed, I believe. So that makes sense that, if we learn how to turn down that, I'm in recovery as an overthinker is what I say. We can definitely, again, vibe higher and tune into that wisdom, whatever, is trying to be told to us. So could you tell us about, any like highlights? Well, that was I think the woman with the Ambien, that was a highlight, but like, any other kind of highs? And also, what is it that you're seeing and what is it that you're sharing? Are you connecting with, past relatives? That was the case in my reading, or what's the process, just so people feel that they understand?
Okay, so what happens is when somebody comes in for a session, I ask them to bring something with them that belonged to a loved one, because psychometry is my strength, which means if I can touch something, it helps, but it's not necessary. So like how you and I did our session on the phone, and I had said to you, can you just either have a picture handy or something that belonged to the spirit, your loved one, that you would like to connect with? And you did have that, and I didn't know what it was, right? I don't have to know what it is, or I don't have to see it. But that kind of, it seems like, is a signal to which spirit we would like to talk to, because I can't control what spirit comes in. And do you mind if I do just a little information about your reading?
You absolutely can. I'm completely.
So if you recall, on your reading, you really wanted to talk to your dad, and he had only recently passed, I think, a year or two earlier. And even though we were focusing on your dad and you were holding on to something that belonged to your dad, your grandma showed up first. And I remember in the beginning, you're like, well, it's kind of like, why is she here? But the reason, what I found is the spirit that comes through is the spirit that really, really has a message that they need to say or share or bury the hatchet. And so in your case, the reason, and grandma had a strong personality. Also, it seems like when spirit had a really strong personality on earth, they a lot of times will have an easier time kind of pushing their way to the front to be heard when I'm doing what I'm doing. And so she came through first because she really had an important message of healing that she needed to talk to you about. And then once she had said her piece and what she needed to say, then your dad showed up. right? Like he stepped, so you still got to talk to your dad. It was just a matter that first she kind of pushed her way to the front because she needed to talk to you about something. So that's how it works. And, you know, sometimes I'll have somebody come in and they'll say, under no circumstance do I want to talk to this one person. And I'm like, well, I can't control who shows up. But what I have noticed though, is people that were really low vibrating, like they were not necessarily, like they were just kind of bad people when they were on Earth. And it doesn't always work like this, but like I did a reading for a woman who was abused by a stepfather her entire life. And it really did so much damage. And so she really wanted to talk to her mom, but she really wanted to make sure he didn't come through because she did not want to talk to him. And in that scenario, he wasn't even around. And I think one of the reasons maybe that he wasn't even around is because he doesn't vibrate high enough to be able to make a connection with me. Does that make sense? So what happens when you're a medium is I have to raise my vibration and spirit has to lower their vibration so that we can meet in the middle so that I can get the information that they're trying to share with me. And that's why they call it a medium. And so isn't that interesting? And so when
I never realized that. Is there a process then that you go through a process to get you into?
I do.
And was that taught to you by the trainer?
Yes. In Mexico. Yeah. So I sit quietly for about, probably 20 or 30 minutes before I do a reading. And I ground myself, and then I connect with all of my spirit guides that surround me to both keep me safe and also to help me understand the messages. And then I always ask my grandma to help me because she had come through in my own personal reading that she would help me do this, right? Help me understand. And then of course I talk to God and thank him. And then I protect myself by saying only the highest vibrating spirits are allowed around me, near me, or through me. And I think, so what I was going to say is because I do that intention of what's allowed around me, I think that's why low vibrating spirits like that stepfather aren't even in the picture in spirit, because obviously they were a very low vibrating person when they were alive because of the abuse and the terrible things that they were doing. But it's interesting though, because, you know, I was doing, so I like one train of thought. And I mean, you know, the funny thing is when you're doing this, it's not like you understand every single thing, right? Like sometimes I'm still like, what does that mean? And I really have to sit quietly and tune in to get the answer of information that I'm being given. But so yeah, when I'm sitting down with someone, they're sitting across from me or they're on the phone, and then I just kind of get quiet and I start focusing. I just kind of relax my mind and space out is what it, you know how when you used to sit in class and you were spacing out? For me, that's what it feels like. Like I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just kind of staring off into space. And then all of a sudden I start getting information. And sometimes that information is shown to me like as a picture in my mind's eye. Sometimes it'll show me like I'm watching a movie. Sometimes I'll have an overwhelming feeling, right? Like clairsentient was my strongest clair before I started doing this, which means I could feel spirit, which is why I think I always had to walk through a piece of real estate before I bought it, because I needed to know how it felt. And it's because my clairsentience was the feeling of spirit was my strongest sense. Now that I've been doing this so long, all my clairs work. So it shows up however it's easiest for them to communicate.
So like if you get something, a feeling, like how would you describe, like, so it's like, if it's like a feeling of like, I'm sorry, or feeling of love, or feelings of like, how do you, like, or.
So it can be a lot of different things. Sometimes spirit will make me feel how they passed, like how they crossed over. So like I'll get like a screaming headache, but then and the minute I say it, it goes away, right? So it doesn't last. Before I understood the importance of verbalizing what spirit was sharing with me, it used to last. Like I would have like a horrible headache or a stomach ache or something for a couple hours. which is why I didn't like doing Reiki on people back in 2013. But then I realized once we started doing this, that my job as a channel is to just give the information. It's not my job to edit it. It's not my job to like sugarcoat it or not say something because it might upset somebody, you know. So I have to be honest. That's
even to hold on to it. It's not your job to hold on to it either, right? It's your job to let it go through through you. Somebody's saying very interesting information, Jennifer. We're getting some messages. Hi. Very interesting information, Jennifer. Somebody says, I don't know who, but it's fascinating. And so could you share like one of the things that you've experienced with somebody that was kind of, obviously we shared mine and without, of course, you know, mine, and I'm open about it. I mean, yeah. And you did share with my father. I remember he would share that he was, you know, he knew how much we were there. He knew how much, you know, how intentional I was when I went there, because I went through a process every time when I visited him with going in there with this light and love. And, you know, you were able to, you know, share that he
had that nickname for you. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other thing is when I read, I always tell people that they should take notes because I only remember about half of it when we're finished. And so, you know, one really inspiring reading that I did was actually for the woman that does my package delivery. And I never really knew her. And she's been coming to my house for like 4 years. But last spring, she was delivering a package and I just happened to be outside. So I took it from her normally I don't cold read people because to me that feels invasive. So if somebody comes to me because they want a reading, that's different than if I'm at a grocery store and I say, oh, by the way, did you lose your husband? Or do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't do that to people. Right. So, but when she was handing me the package, I said to her, I'm sure you don't know this about me, but I'm a medium and I am actually getting a message right now. Would it be okay if I shared that with you? And her eyes were like this big and she was like, yeah. And I said, did you lose your husband? And she said, yeah, I did. And she's young. And I said, I said, was it cancer? Because like it really hurts in my stomach. And she said, yeah, it was. And so we talked a little bit and I told her, you know, he was wanting me to tell you that you're doing a really good job with the kids. Like a lot of times you feel like you can't carry the load, but he's there beside you and he's helping you. And of course, you know, when I talk to people, they're crying. And when I'm reading, what happens is I get goosebumps from head to toe and my eyes get really teary. So if you can see me, sometimes people are like, are you seeing something bad? And I'm like, no, this is my physical reaction. Like if you smell pepper and you sneeze, my physical reaction when spirit's close to me is I get those teary eyes and the head to toe goosebumps. Well, so anyway,
I'm getting the goosebumps right now. Just as I hear it, I get goosebumps. So, you know, it's like, I can imagine that, you know, that you would get that because it is pretty.
Yeah. So she said, can I come in for a session? And I want to bring my kids. And I said, yeah, if you're okay with bringing them, do. Because I mean, I'm totally open to it. And it's really up to the parent on how their kids will feel. And her boys were 12 and 15. So they lost their dad 2 or 3 years ago. And so they came in for a reading and I didn't know anything about the family except that she's my package delivery lady. And we sat down and I was getting so much information. Like the dad had such a strong connection and was so powerful. Before they even got here, he started setting off a smoke detector that was in my storage room that didn't have batteries in it. I was like, where's the smoke detector? What is it? And I'm looking around and I'm like, it's in a box. It doesn't even have batteries in it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a good one. And so we sat down and that day, they actually have come 4 times now. They come every couple months because I always call it like visiting hours in heaven, right? Like I have people that do come on a regular basis because they just want to be able to talk to their loved one, which to me is really sweet. and meaningful for them because it provides so much healing. It's not like weird and it's not scary. Even though when I first started doing this, I was afraid that that's what people might think. But every single experience I have had has always been about love and beauty and closure and connection and that kind of a situation. And so that particular day, he had a lot to say to his 15-year-old, right? He was like, you are carrying around all this anger. And I said, your dad is telling me that like you don't talk to anybody, and then when you lose your temper, it is so big and explosive that it scares the people around you. Is that true? And his mom and his brother are both shaking their heads and crying. And he's like, the dad was really like calling him on the carpet about some of his behavior. And the message for him that day, after all kinds of, so Spirit does validation in the beginning for probably the first 15 or 20 minutes where they're telling me stuff that they would know, but I don't know. So I'm just relaying it and saying, does that make sense to you? And then they just tell me yes or no. And what that does is that lets them know that I'm actually speaking with their loved one, that it's not just something I'm making up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, which I can't even imagine, like trying to do something like this and making it up, because I think it's such bad karma. Like I would never. I don't
even understand how you possibly do that. I mean, yeah, there are people that do that, but I don't see how it's even possible to do that unless you're completely insane. Because
I was going to say the level of having absolutely no conscience about what you're doing is like that. The idea of those people are scary to me because you could do so much damage. But I think that I think that's a dangerous game to play with universe. Like I would never do that. But so anyway, after we were finished with this session, and it was really cool because the dad said, if you keep carrying this anger about losing me, it's going to cripple you for the next 5 years. You are absolutely like, he was showing me that like the kid was going to maybe start doing some drugs. He was going to be really lost. It was going to be really hard for him to pull his life back together. And so I was telling this kid that, and afterwards, it was like you could feel the lightness in the room from the energy that the mom and the boys had brought in. And like it was so much lighter than when they first showed up. And she texted me like 3 times over the next probably the next 5 or 6 days that said, I don't even recognize this oldest kid of mine. Like he's talking to me again. We've had conversations that we haven't even ever had. Like he's being open and honest. And she was crying. She was like, I can't tell you what this means to me. And so then like a couple of months later, she came in, or maybe it was a month and a half or 2 months later, she came in, but she wanted to come by herself because she wanted to talk to her husband about some stuff that was private. And the boys really wanted to come. Like they were upset that she was going without them. So she came in and I said, you know what, for Christmas, I'll do a session for you and your family as a gift. Like, because, she struggles. And I said, I want you to come in and I know the boys are so desperate to talk to their dad again, and it's Christmas time. And so they came in, and I'll tell you, that oldest boy, you wouldn't even recognize him. He was happy and jolly and had like a spring in his step, and he looked so sharp. He got a haircut, and just his entire energy was completely different than what it was before. And so it's so amazing to see how that can make a change in people. And also for those kids to know that their dad, this is what I never understood before I started being a medium. I'm surprised still at how much time our loved ones spend around us, right? Like they check in on us, or they'll be near us. Like we'll hear a song on the radio, or we'll see something that reminds us of them. That's true. That's not just wishful thinking, and that's not just in our heads. Spirit likes to stay close. They like to check in on you. And so when you get that feeling that they're around, that's probably true. And you don't have to feel scared of it, right? It's your loved ones. They're just checking in to say hi.
Yeah, to know that you're not alone, and they're guiding you. Again, it's like if you allow yourself to access that guidance, you know, and that. So I think that's what that you did for this kid, where he felt like, you know, like maybe he was angry because he doesn't have a, you know, father, but then he learned that his father's guiding him all the time and keeping him in check, and so he, you know, he needs to stay in line, and then look at what a better life he's gonna have. That's, whew, it's amazing. Somebody says, somebody on Facebook says, I've personally experienced the power of these connections. Great explanation, clarity, and examples. So that's good.
Great. Good.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. I have one more question to ask about that, and then we're just going to do a speed round, because I like to do that at the end.
Okay.
So as far as the Reiki, are you now able to do it, or do you still not do it? And now are you able to not, you know, protect yourself from taking the energy?
Yeah, so multiple answers. So yes, I am doing Reiki again, because I have a lot of people too that, like, they'll come in for readings, but they also want to keep seeing me, right? They want to keep coming in, or they will feel super stressed out, and they know that by doing Reiki, it'll help them feel more calm. And so, yeah, I have like regular Reiki clients, but you know, the real beauty of that is when I was, doing that little bit of work under Teresa Caputo's mentor, whose name is Pat Longo. She had really helped me on that first call, because I told her, you know, I feel sick when I do it. And she said, it's because you're not grounding enough, because you're so sensitive. Because I had always learned the grounding, like picture yourself in the iridescent bubble, but then that was it. And she was like, yeah, that works. That's good for like most run-of-the-mill people, but when you're sensitive and you're picking up on information from spirit, you got to do way more than that. So she taught me, you know, after the bubble, I picture tree roots growing out the bottoms of my feet and my tailbone, and going down into, like, super fast and really big down into the core of the earth. And when it gets at the core, it spreads out and then clamps in the roots of a tree. And then I step back up into my body, and I picture a solid silver metal vest, like what the knights used to wear in the old days, like you could knock on it, from my collarbone to my hip bone, and it's completely surrounding my torso. And then I cross my arms like this, so that my wrists are double crossing in front of my heart chakra, which is where you absorb most of your other people's emotions. And then I picture golden light coming down from the universe and pouring into the top of my head and going all the way through my body until my body is encased in golden light within that bubble. And that made a huge difference, so that when I'm working on people, I'm not absorbing their energy. I'm not, they don't leave behind what they bring in with them. You know, one other story I was going to tell you that's super interesting is I was doing Reiki on this woman once. And I work on her whole family, like her mom, all her sisters, but I didn't know anything about her. It was our first session, and I'm doing Reiki on her, and all of a sudden, in my mind's eye, luckily, the good news is, because I asked Spirit, I don't want to see you like if they were physically standing there, because that scares me. Because I'm like, whoa, it's like if you saw a mouse, right? Yeah. And so, so they show me everything through my mind's eye. But I'm working on her, and all of a sudden I feel like this male gang member step forward, like toward me, and he has so much aggression and is really like trying to be intimidating to me, that I actually backed away from her and did the protection of that circle. And then also I hold hands with my spirit guides, and I called in their protection immediately. And the minute I did that, he backed off. But I could still feel him around. So when I finished Reiki, we sat down, and we always do a recap of what did they experience, what did I experience. And I told her this story, and I said, do you know who that is? And she said, I know exactly who that is. That's a cousin of mine that I used to be super close to, who was a gang member. And he, and I said, was he shot? Because I feel like he was. And she said, yep, in the stomach. And I told her like how he was like acting like super intimidating. But then when I pulled in all my spirit guides, he backed off. And she said, that is totally his personality too. Like, he would try to be kind of tough or intimidating, but if you stood up to him, he would back off. And I thought that was really interesting. And then after she left that day, I could still kind of feel him hanging around in that area where I had done the session. So I went back down later to the area where I do all my sessions and just said, hey, you know what? You need to leave. Like, I understand that you like being here and you feel like happy that you can connect or give me information, but your time is over now. And so go back to the light in love and peace. And he left. I could feel that he went away. But what's nice is now I don't feel scared of that, right? Like, oh, I can feel him around. I'm like, okay, you know what? It's time for you to go. Like, it's just not okay. And then one other thing I wanted to say, because I have a lot of people come and see me whose loved ones have crossed themselves over, which is a nice way of saying suicide. And I used to, because of my religious upbringing, I was always scared, actually, because I had a handful of people I knew growing up who had done that. And I was always scared that, like, they were stuck somewhere, or maybe they went to hell or something like that. And I'm so happy to say, in my experience of doing readings, that that's not actually the case. In all of them except one of those situations, they were like in a classroom where they're learning on the other side the lessons that they were supposed to learn here while they were alive, but because their life was cut short, that's where they've gone to develop and learn the things that they were supposed to learn when they were here. So that was another wonderful kind of surprise for me when I started doing this, because that's what I was most concerned about when I started reading for other people. Is I was like, what if their loved one has crossed themselves over, you know? And then I realized those are actually usually the people that are still alive. Those are the ones that need the reading so bad, because they didn't have a chance to say goodbye, or they didn't understand that it was coming, or it was so sudden, or, you know, situations like that. And so that really gives those people a ton of peace.
That's beautiful. I know of somebody who had her son, you know, and once she started connecting with him in spirit, she's like and he had committed suicide, and that they had a better relationship now than ever, like, and which is continuing as she's growing older, and that it's like stronger than it ever was when he was actually living, which is kind of cool.
Well, and that's so beautiful. And, you know, it's so much easier, not easier, but that makes sense to me what you're saying, because he's at a different vibration level now than he was when he was on Earth, right? So he's not carrying all of the pain and the sadness and the anger and the hurt that he would have been carrying when he was on Earth.
So I have one more question, because I have to ask you, because you're here. So what do you think of, you know, whether when, you know, our spirit, does it go into another body? Do we, you know, is there, you know, because I don't believe that we ever go completely away. I think that, you know, and so when our spirit, if we're passed, you know, that's like, say, my father's spirit does it go into another? Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
What are you asking? Like, is he in heaven, or are you asking, like, will he be reincarnated?
Yeah, will he be reincarnated? Are people, you know, what's your feeling on the reincarnation?
So I don't know 100% anything, but my feel is that it can happen. I don't think it happens to everybody, but I feel like, from my understanding of it, is we have a soul contract that we agree to before we're ever born, on what our life is going to be like and what lessons we need to learn to be able to take us to, where's my camera, to take it. Let me use my other hand. So one thing that I could never understand before I started doing this is, why are some people like so like enlightened or high vibrating, or they're just such good quality people, and then you have other people that are like not good people, right? And I was always like, what is that? In fact, my degree in college was sociology and psychology, because I wanted to understand, like, what makes people like that, what makes people do what they do. And what I've kind of realized both with age and with doing this is where you come, if you come back, you come back to where your vibration level was when you left before, right? So that's why, like for me personally, I absolutely, it's really important to me. And I've been doing self-improvement since I got into sales when I was 23. And so and before that, I was a really fun and funny person, but I also had like some anger, right? Like, oh, Jen's funny and cool, but don't make her mad because then she's crazy, right? And so that's kind of how my personality was when I was younger. And then of course you grow up, luckily. But one of the things that I started realizing with age is I want to learn and evolve as much as I possibly can in this lifetime, because if and when you come back, that's what you're brought back into, is that same kind of level, so you can keep growing from there. So it's like a step up, right? Is what it feels like to me. Every time you have an incarnation here, it's to get to the next level of growth and development and vibration. And so honestly, it's one of the reasons I'm so glad that I finally opened up to, I call this a gift because to me it feels like a gift. I feel really blessed that God has given me this, and that I finally understand what it is, right? Because it would have been easy to go my whole life and just keep ignoring it. But I'm really, and even though I was like nervous and scared and self-conscious when I first started doing it, just about what other people might think, which is kind of funny because normally I don't care what other people think, but this is like so, I don't want to say extreme, but it's so like kind of out of the norm that I think that's why I was like, okay. But the reason I'm so glad that I embraced it in this lifetime is because I really think that if I am sent back again, I feel I'm supposed to do something big with it on this incarnation. And then if I am ever sent back again, and I think it's something that you agree to, because I always joke with my husband, hey, let's have this be the last time we come around, and then we can just stay over on the other side where it's beautiful and you don't have to learn more stuff. But I don't know that will actually, if it's like
that. That's great. I actually really understand.
Go ahead.
No, I understand it similarly, like in the way that you described it also. I think that, we're here to kind of, in like the yoga technology, it's, to fulfill our dharma, not even our dharma is like our purpose. And if we don't fulfill it fully, we'll come back, and if we really go down, we could come back as who knows what, cockroach is what says. So you want to continue to evolve and grow. And I mean, that's kind of how that's kind of how I understand it too, similarly. And so, but as far as while we're here though, our spirits and those we've lost are always going to be available if we allow them to be. Yes. Yeah.
And there's a idea called your soul circle, and that is the idea that every time you do reincarnate, you still have those loved ones, the people that were important to you when you were here, are still within your soul circle. So maybe they come back as your child, maybe your dad comes back as your child, or maybe you come back as the mother to your brother or something like that, right? So and I mean, there's not any kind of hard concrete proof anywhere, but to me that always feels right. It feels correct. Like, when sometimes you meet somebody and you just feel like you've known them your whole life and you have an instant connection and you want to be near them. I think that's what that is.
I love that. That's beautiful. Very, very cool. All right, we're gonna change the channel a little bit for our speed round before we're gonna wrap up. Okay, so this is just a little bit of a shift. And then at the end, I really want you to, well, if you want, Jen, if you want to just share how people can reach you, if any, because we have a few people watching. Somebody says Susan Still is on. She says, "Wow." Just want to share how people can connect with you and work with you, or want to hear more or get to know you better.
So on Facebook, and I have a website that's under JJ Smith Medium. So 2 capital J's and then SMITH. That's my married name. and then medium behind it. So that's both on Facebook and on the internet. But are the only people watching here? Are they all ageless goddess people,
They're
or is this
not.
open?
No, we're also gonna have a YouTube link. I'll send to you, and also it's on my Facebook business page.
Okay.
So not everybody is.
So the
reason.
Okay. The only reason I'm asking is so if you can send me a private message on that Facebook page. I was going to give you my phone number, so if they wanted to call, but if this is going out to the entire internet, then I won't. You guys can either just send me a private message or link it through Liz and she can forward it on to me, something like that, if you want to do a session or if you have more questions.
Okay. That's great. Great. And if you want to, Jennifer, you can give me your number and I'll put it in the group or you can in the group so that it'll just be there and not to be shared with that, side. Okay. Wonderful. Yep. Okay. We're going to do a quick speed round. Okay. Well, you've said a lot of these things, but okay. If age was not a factor, is there anything you'd like to learn, try, or experience?
The only one of the other things that I really, really love that if I had to do college all over again is I would have been an interior decorator and designer. Like that's something I just love doing in my spare time. Yes, and I have heard you're very, very good at it too. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Is there do you watch TV? Any TV shows you're binging?
I do. Right now I'm like in season 6 of Call the Midwife on Netflix. It's a British
Is it
TV
good?
show. Yeah, it's really good. It's set in the 40s, and so that's the one I'm watching right now. Call the Midwife.
Okay. Call the Midwife. I'm writing it down. Okay. Just off the top of your head, are there 3 things you can't live without?
Yes, my health. And I'm not trying to be funny by saying that, but health is so important. I've always taken it for granted because I've always been very healthy. But in the last year, I've really in the last 6 months, I've started to realize you can't take your health for granted or it'll sneak up on you when you're not finished living. So health is important, something I couldn't live without. My husband, I could live without him, but I would not want to. And that would be a tough one. And experiences, we travel a lot, and just the experiencing new things and how that helps your soul grow that's something that's important to me. Yeah,
I love it. So with that being said, dream a vacation destination.
I've gone to almost everywhere I would like to go to. But something that's a ongoing place that I love is we go to both France and Spain a lot, especially France. And to me, there's something about France that in the countryside that always feels a little bit like coming home. And I like that feeling. So that'll be a trip I continue to do.
Wonderful. Okay. Success is
understanding who you are and loving yourself.
Beautiful. Relationships are
important. Take the time to cultivate them.
Nice. Sisterhood is
irreplaceable. When you find your circle of women that support you and lift you up, that's your well, you have it, that's your tribe, right? Those are the people that whether it's a celebration or whether it's something sad, those are the people that you're going to lean on. And especially as you get older, it's important to have that kind of a circle around you of women you can trust.
I could not agree more. Okay, my superpower is, well, we all know. My superpower is I see dead people. I'll fill that one in.
Actually, I think I would say my superpower is I can talk to and communicate with anybody. Like I can interact with anybody and make them feel welcome. And I've always had that ability since I was a kid. So I think that's that's a wonderful thing to have, because then you never know a stranger.
I love that. And you made me feel that way when I met you, for sure. I felt that way with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, just a couple more. It all comes down to.
I think you just cut out. What did you ask?
Oh, it all comes down to blank. Did you hear that?
Living a grateful life. Yeah, being grateful every day for what you have, regardless of what you wish you had. If you can find gratitude every single day, that's where you find your power.
Yes, I agree. Then your life will be great and full, is what I say. For sure.
Yeah.
I believe in blank.
God. That, you know, it's funny. I actually had, just a side note, I had somebody that I've known just as an acquaintance for a long time. He used to do my hair a long time ago, and he's a naturopathy person. And I had met up with him last week to just get some supplements. And he was like, and I haven't seen him in years, probably 5 or 6 years. And he said, "What are you doing now?" And I told him, and he lost his mind. He started quoting Bible verse to me and said I was in the occult, and said all kinds of horrible things. Like, he wasn't trying to be horrible. I think it was just his knee-jerk reaction. And normally I don't care when people are like critical about what I do, because it's not me doing it, right? I don't have any ego around it. So I'm like, that's okay if you don't believe it or whatever. But that felt like such a personal attack of that it did bother me for a day. And here's why it bothered me. It wasn't because of ego. It's because he kept trying to tell me that what I'm able to do does not come from God. Like, it couldn't come from God. And that's in complete opposite of what I believe, but also what I feel. And so it took me a day to get my head right again, to say, to actually say to God, this is me taking it personally, which comes from ego. So help me not care or not buy in to what his personal opinion about the relationship that I have with you. And that really helped. But yeah, the more I've always been a believer, but this has really improved or heightened my relationship with the other side.
Yeah, well, I think it takes it to, again, another level, leveling up to another level.
Because of what I'm doing. Yeah.
And it sounds like this guy is at a level of fear, and that's okay. And it's probably, if that happens again, you're not going to have the same reaction. You're just going to be like, okay, like, me and God, right. We're good,
Yeah. Well, the really strange thing is, normally, I've had people go, I think that's total bogus and I don't believe in it at all. And I've always been like, okay, that's all right. Like, you don't have to believe in it. But I think that there was just something about this that felt so personal. And you're right. It was from a place of fear. And I just had to remember to not take that personally.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, 2 more quick questions. So I have to ask this, as we are the ageless goddesses that we are. So what does it mean to you to be ageless? And then what does it mean to be an ageless goddess?
To be ageless, to me, means to never cease to find the wonder and the joy in everything in life, right? New experiences, new people, how to stay open-minded and open-hearted. And to, like I said, to live in joy and gratitude, and not in one of fear or the idea of lack. So to me, that's what being ageless is. Like, when you see those women that you're like, they seem like they're 20 years younger than what they actually are. But for me, it's always because of their spirit. That's what it boils down to. It's that they've kept their spirit young by always having a curiosity about life, instead of getting locked in to low vibrating emotions or beliefs.
and cultural programming and all the media and all the things that are, that the industries that want to take our money do. But yeah, that's beautiful. I so agree with the wonder part. Just like choosing wonder over worry is like the way to stay ageless. Yeah. And so when you hear, what about an ageless goddess? What does that mean? Is it like, I mean, is it an awareness? Is it a mental state? Is a combo of all?
Honestly, when I hear ageless goddess, Liz, I think of you. And I think it's because you've done a really good job with kind of coining that term and building a group of women that are both empowered, but also supportive of each other. And so congratulations, you're doing a really great job on doing that, because I know it takes a lot of work behind the scenes. So that's nice of you it's great of you to do that. But yeah, when I hear those words put together, I think of what you're building on your path during this lifetime.
Oh, that's beautiful. But my path includes you as an ageless goddess, her, every other person to also embody that, because that's how, we're going to pass it along. But thank you for that. That's very sweet. And it is, again, it was like a calling. It was like I was told you're to be doing this, you need to do this. And so I listened to the call. So I thank you. This was fascinating, which I had no doubt it would be, and I know from direct experience, but I appreciate you so much. I thank you from my heart to your heart and my soul to your soul, sister. And reach out to Jen. You'll get more if you're curious, and find out more information.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you're welcome to contact me with even if you just have a question through private message, or if you want to set up a appointment, you can either private message me, or you could schedule those on my on the website. But if you've seen this, I'll give you a discount if you schedule a session. So if you found out about me through watching Liz Gabor today, just let me know and I'll give you a discount.
Awesome. That's very generous. Thank you, Jen. This was great. Appreciate you. Be well.
You too.
We're gonna go off live.
Thanks so much.
You could stay on for a minute if you like.